Hi, everyone. So in this presentation, we're going to be talking about water quality, which is chapter 9 of the textbook, and how that relates to the Long Beach Water Department. So my name's Christina, and my group mates are Sierra, Alec, Heather, and Muniba. Okay, so we're going to talk about a brief summary of water quality. So water quality is a crucial issue for environmental health, as water is essential to life on Earth. So when talking about water quality and public health, having safe drinking water is essential to the health of the public. So the introduction of chlorinated drinking water in the early 20th century was helped to reduce waterborne infections in the US. This is because vulnerable groups are at a risk of contracting diseases through water contamination. So right now we have major quality regulations in the US to prevent water contamination, which are the Safe Drinking Water Act and the Clean Water Act. About 20% of the world's population actually lacks safe drinking water, and the problem's even worse in developing nations. So it's really important to have these quality regulations. So when talking about water supply, the main sources of drinking water by humans include surface water and groundwater. So surface water is from lakes and rivers, while groundwater is stored naturally in underground aquifers. So this is constantly being replenished by the hydrological cycle, aka the water cycle, which is when freshwater supply is continuously replenished. Okay, so a continuation of this is water availability. So approximately 70% of the Earth's surface is covered in water, but most of it is ocean water and therefore unusable. Um, However, only 3% of it is fresh water, and most of this is unusable as it's frozen in the polar ice caps and glaciers. So as a result, only 1% of the usable water comes from surface freshwater or underground aquifers. Um, so that's barely anything if you think about it. But it's constantly being renewed by the hydrological cycle. So water scarcity. The demand for water exceeds the available water in places like Africa and the Near East. And so treatment of water for residential consumption. There are 4 stages of water treatment in the US to meet the EPA safety quality standards, which are coagulation, sedimentation, filtration, and disinfection. There's like a beautiful little diagram on the screen that you can obviously see. Yeah, okay. So some places in the US actually add fluoride to public drinking water to prevent tooth decay, and this came about in the early 1900s. Aquifers are also used to treat water and make it high quality. And this is done through minimal aeration, filtration, and disinfection in the aquifers. And sometimes, although it's made safe to drink, the water still has impurities like discoloration. So they have to use ultrafine filtration filters in order to make it more acceptable. Okay, now let's talk about drinking water contamination. So sometimes waterborne diseases or metals like lead can contaminate water supply. This often happens through runoff from urban streets. So listed are some examples of contaminants like chemicals, petroleum, and microbial pathogens from human or animal waste. So this last one, number 5, is especially important to note because this is why there's dog regulations in place. Like people are really encouraged to pick up after their pets, as you can get waterborne diseases and parasites from these things like giardiasis. Okay, next slide. So primary objectives of the Long Beach Water Department. So the main goal of the Long Beach Water Department is to provide water and sewer services for approximately 500,000 customers in a 50 square mile area. They are responsible for providing services to the 7th largest population in the state of California. And they have the Board of Water Commissioners in place, which establish rates, regulations, and oversee management and administration to deliver services. Okay, so listed, we have a picture of the current Board of Water Commissioners. Okay. So continuing this, the primary objectives of the Long Beach Water Department, there are some objectives in place since 1992, and then further, there were more objectives put in place. So some of those like important ones to note are that to operate water sewer systems safely and efficiently, recognize the department's environmental responsibilities, expand water supply, promote service offerings, and develop a competitive workforce and foster governance. So they're really encouraged to follow the California Water Action Plan to restore critical ecosystems and create resilience and reliable water systems. And yeah, that's my part.
So here are some of the secondary goals for the Long Beach Water Department. The first one is going to be to increase water conservation. Right now, the city is currently working on a plan that would allow for 15% of the city's total water need to be fulfilled by reclaimed water. The second goal they have is to decrease reliance on water from external sources. So right now, only about 60% of our current water supply comes from local sources. The other 40% comes from either the Colorado River or the Sacramento, San Joaquin Bay Delta. They're trying to decrease that reliance right now on the external sources and be more dependent on our own water supply. The third secondary goal they have is to be more prepared for periods of drought. About 94% of California right now is in what's considered a severe drought, so that's always a concern for them. Fourth goal they have is to increase their water storage capacity. Right now, they have 24 tanks that hold 3.5 million gallons each. They're trying to increase that number. Fifth, they're going to try to increase their flood protection. They recently got a $700,000 grant from FEMA that they're using to bolster their flood protection. And finally, they'd like to increase their operational efficiency. And you can see here, this is the map of the service area for Long Beach Water Department. It services over 450,000 individuals and covers approximately 50 square miles.
An estimate of the organizational size and jurisdictional size of the Long Beach Water Department agency is shown in the image on the right. The chart shows the department's depth of the organizational and jurisdictional size. The Long Beach Water Department was founded in 1911 and was originally placed under the control of the Long Beach City Manager. In the subsequent years, the city of Long Beach's population grew, while its water supply became even more unreliable. It eventually became apparent that the independent oversight of the water department would be necessary. This idea of a need for an independent water commission was brought to the city's attention by two separate committees formed in 1930, a Citizens Water Committee and a Water Rights Committee. So each committee would be tasked with studying local water conditions and subsequently reporting their findings and recommendations. The Board of Commissions has a president, a vice president, a secretary elected by fellow board members. The current president right now of the board is Robert Shannon, who was elected by his fellow board members in September 2021. Gloria Cordero will serve as vice president, with Naomi Rainey serving as secretary. So in terms of types of monitoring of the drinkable water sources, the Long Beach Water Department monitors the quality and ensures safety of drinking water. As required under the 1996 Safe Drinking Water Act, which we will mention in further slides as well, these amendments show that a source water assessment must be completed for all active drinking water sources. So the Long Beach Water Department performed over 63,000 tests in 2020 and analyzed the samples for more than 100 drinking water contaminants, which is a lot. The state requires monitoring for certain substances less than once a year due to the infrequent changes of substance concentration. The US EPA, which is the United States Environmental Protection Agency, and state board prescribes regulations prohibiting a certain amount of contaminants in the water, where they occur, and ensuring the contaminants are within a proper range. The contaminants vary from microbial contaminants such as viruses and bacteria, inorganic contaminants such as salts and metals, pesticides and herbicides, organic chemicals that are synthetic and volatile, radioactive materials, and unregulated contaminants. Also, the clarity, which is the turbidity of the water, is used to monitor the effectiveness of the water filtration systems, indicated by measuring the cloudiness of the water.
Hello, my name is Heather, and I'll be going over control measures and environmental indicators in regards to the Long Beach Water Department. So let's start with what are control measures. So control measures are precautions that are put into place in order to protect individuals from any risk or hazard. So what are the control measures that are implemented by the Long Beach Water Department? Well, to ensure our water quality, the drinking water undergoes a multi-stage treatment process in order to eliminate pathogens, viruses, and also goes through rigorous testing to ensure that it meets strict federal and state standards. In terms of our drinking water, the Long Beach Water Department uses small amounts of chlorine and chloramine to disinfect the water and protect against waterborne diseases, and also monitors those levels to make sure they're in the safe concentration range. Okay, another water quality measure is the water quality report done every year, which is basically the water quality staff performing tens of thousands of tests to analyze different samples to find potential drinking water contaminants. The 1996 Safe Drinking Water Act is an act put in place for all inventory of all potential activities that may degrade the quality of the source water. In fact, the Long Beach has a state-of-the-art groundwater treatment plant and 4 water quality laboratories to ensure proper water treatment. And lastly, the Long Beach Water Department conducts weekly field testing throughout the city in multiple different sites for additional testing to make sure the water quality is safe for consumers. All right, on to environmental indicators. So environmental indicators are different ways to measure what's happening in the environment. Environmental indicators provide a practical and economical way to track some aspect of the environment. And the environmental indicators that are used for water quality are chemicals. So that includes dissolved oxygen, pH, temperature, salinity, and nutrients present in the water. And also for toxins, which includes insecticides, herbicides, and metals.
This is Muniba, and I'll be discussing the DPSEEA model. To begin with, the driving force behind water use is the growing population both in Long Beach and around the world. The pressures this causes are drilling and mining for water. This is known as hydraulic fracking. Fracking uses pipes, and the machine engine runs through the burning of petroleum. The state in this model is the ground and land that the species inhabited before the machines were driven to this land. The land animals have to relocate to other habitats, which may make them vulnerable to different species. Not only that, the ground after this procedure takes place is left dry and hard for plants and animals to be able to thrive there again. It damages the natural habitat. In terms of exposure, this is how tap water is extracted from ground. So the people who drink the tap water will be affected if chlorine levels are too high in the water, as well as too much fluoride, which can cause white spots on the teeth. Sometimes gas or oil can leak into the water pipelines during the procedure. This is related to the agency's main goal in the sense that the agency advocates for tap water use more than bottled water use. Under the Clean Water Act, The agency does weekly testing to help ensure water quality and make sure the concentration of chemicals in the water are safe for human health. The Environmental Protection Agency also requires the annual release of the water quality report to ensure public faith. This is called the Consumer Confidence Report. The biggest pro is drilling promises more water for the increasing population locally and internationally. On the other hand, however, drilling uses petroleum and releases carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. When the atmosphere receives too much CO2, it can cause icebergs to melt. This introduces sulfuric acid into the ocean and acidifies the ocean, as well as causing there to be acidic rain. Another pro is that we have newer and more advanced water testing technologies, so this can help preserve public faith in the tap water system. One contemporary technology is the power of social media, which in this case can be a con. Whenever there is a leakage of chemicals in tap water, this is covered by news media a lot more than if a bottled water company had an incident. This does sway the public opinion of tap water. This affects our agency's goal of advocating for the safety of tap water. The last pro in this list that I would like to discuss is that we as the public have political power. We can elect public officials such as the mayor of Long Beach who will support tap water to help increase confidence in our water agencies. The last con to touch upon is that we don't actually have a proper green solution for extracting groundwater. The most recent method to gain water is water from the ocean and desalinating it. However, that in itself produces a lot of problems to sea life.
The last section of our presentation is going to go over the 8 questions we made, with 4 from the book and 4 that we made from our PowerPoint. An additional key will be at the end to show our answers and with references at the end. So the first question is, although approximately 70% of the Earth's surface is converted in water, most of it is ocean water and therefore unusable. Approximately what percentage of Earth's water is freshwater? Number 2, naturally occurring sources of pollution come from what? Question number 3. The average person uses about 100 gallons of water per day, and the average resident uses over 100,000 gallons during a typical year in the United States. Is this true or false? Number 4. In most plants, what is the last stage within water treatment plants before water is stored? Number 5. Approximately what percentage of Long Beach's water supply is exported from external sources? Number 6, match the number with the order of the process caused by drilling, 1 through 4. Number 7, the Long Beach Water Department services over 450,000 individuals over an area of approximately 250 square miles. Is this true or false? And lastly, number 8, match the following examples that correspond to the DIPSI model relating to the Long Beach Water Department. And here's our answer key with all our answers. And here are references for our presentation. Thank you.